and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Did you know that protons have mass?
Yes.
I didn't even know they were Catholic. He stepped right into that. Hey, this is going to be a good podcast. I can tell right away.
Now, you don't go to the Catholic Church anymore, do you?
I'm not allowed to say that in public.
Okay, my question is, and you might know.
Yes, every sperm is sacred.
The new Pope is from Chicago.
Hey, forget about it.
That's New York.
I know. That's why New York people do not recognize the current Pope.
Now, my question is, have they replaced the sacramental wine with Malort?
You'll never know.
Well, I may have to go to mass here soon because I do take clients from the group home to church.
Just like Peter Griffith said, "Whoa, this is Jesus' blood. He must have been wasted all the time." All right, let's see. We've gotten sacrilegious in the first couple of minutes. Yes, I can tell this is going to be a good podcast.
And we've insulted people in Chicago.
We have.
Have you ever had Malort?
I don't drink wine normally.
It is not a wine.
Uh-oh.
It is a hard liquor that is in mostly Chicago, and it tastes like pain and suffering. And there is a new YouTube page that I found. I don't watch it all the time, but you pick and choose. And is this song worse than Malort? So what it is, he starts with a shot of Malort, which is awful, and then listens to a song, and he decides whether he would rather hear the song again or take another shot of Malort.
Rough job.
I've been reading funny books, Joe.
Figures. I haven't.
I have, because it's coming to the end. Now, when they announced that it was going to be kind of a closed universe story, I decided to wait on the Ultimate line. And now that it's coming to a close, I'm going to read each series and then read Ultimate End. So the one that I read this time was Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, sure. Start with the best.
Well, that's not what I hear.
Really? I enjoyed it.
Oh, I enjoyed it too, but I hear that two of the other books are better, but we'll get to that. But Marvel's decision was to close that universe off. And part of it will be a big part of the big summer event that they are hyping, as this is the biggest Marvel event since, I don't know, Civil War, Secret Wars, some sort of war. And you and I have discussed a few times whether we think ending the Ultimate Universe is a good idea or not.
Me?
Yeah, you and I, we've talked about that on this here podcast.
Well, judging by the way the last one ended, yes, it is a good idea.
So here is my
comic
question.
Shop, I'd be like a little upset because you're like, hey, this is like selling like gangbusters and you're killing it.
That I agree with too.
Next topic.
So my question is, I asked last Monday because I was home alone and I actually had time. I asked people to ask any comic opinion question, and I would have to give my answer.
Yes.
And one person said, "What are the worst story decisions that Marvel and DC have made?" And I put up a few ideas, but I thought, we're heading toward episode 700. Matter of fact, this is 698.
Oh my!
We're only 100 behind the Simpsons now.
The Simpsons. We might catch up because we go year round.
Yeah, and they had a shortened season this year, by the way. Episode 800 was their season finale for now. because what it is, they're going to swap out the Simpsons for American Dad.
Not the same.
Not at all. But I thought this week we would talk about Marvel's worst storyline decisions and DC's worst storyline decisions. Not their biggest stupid decisions backstage.
The Crossing. Chris, you already covered that.
Having Gary Conway as editor-in-chief for a month. Having Stan Lee kind of pop in every so often with ideas. The 70s were very weird with Stan because Stan's job was publisher, but they really wanted him. First, they wanted him doing the college circuit to sort of promote Marvel. And I remember that when I started reading Marvel comics, they would have Stan Lee's going to be at this college and this college and this college and this college. And as a 12 and 13-year-old, I thought, oh, wow, that is super cool. And now I see it for what it was because I was on one of those college committees where they bring in speakers. And it was, oh, wow, he was basically out doing publicity. Good for him. But they then put him in Hollywood because there were a bunch of people and there, who grew up reading Marvel comics and they knew who Stan was. So they figured, hey, if we get Stan in front of some of these studio people, we'll get TV series and movies and everything. And it only took about 30 years for that to work. But when Stan would come back, he would say things and the people at Marvel would immediately take it as gospel. And I will give you a great example.
Okay.
One time, Stan came back from a tour and he looked at a cover of Iron Man and he said, well, shouldn't Iron Man, his face is, shouldn't there be like room for his nose there in his mask? And that's how we got the Iron Man nose for like, I don't know how many months, like 4 or 5 months. And then Stan came back from another tour and said, wow, Iron Man's mask looks really stupid with that nose on it. There were other times he came back and he said, there's green on that cover. Never put green on a comic book cover. It makes it so things don't sell. So they wouldn't use green on anything.
No green. No green for you.
But no, these are story decisions that Marvel has made that were bad ideas. They caused major damage to the line, or they hurt a book. In some cases, they killed the book. They ruined the character, etc., etc. So I have quite a few because I think about this way too much.
Yes, you do.
And I'm going to go with one of the most famous ones. And we've talked about it once or twice here on the show, and that is when Hank Pym became a villain and smacked the Wasp around.
Yeah, which to me was the most overblown retro continuity bullshit decision ever made. Because it happened. It wasn't like he was constantly beating her. It was a momentary mistake, and they kind of blew it up into this, years-long obsession. Oh, he was beating her. No, he hit her once. I'm not talking the original Ultimate line where he was just a cad to begin with.
Yeah.
And fine, he went insane. Fine, he went nuts. But yeah, that whole storyline, I guess I accept the Scarlet Witch one in Disassembled because you get that montage of all the different versions of Scarlet Witch. And you're like,
how the character had been so poorly used for the past 15 years up to that point.
And it led to something. It led to something monumental. No More Mutants. But yeah, Hank Pym was just kind of, he was what's supposed to be at the time, the fourth smartest person in the Marvel Universe. He created the Pym particles, something even Reed Richards never came up with, Tony Stark never came up with. It's amazing that these guys come up with this stuff and nobody else thinks to use them anywhere else. That's just like, nope, I'm the one who created it. Therefore, I'm going to go out and fight crime with it. Really?
It's like the Spider-Man's webbing.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the thing. Back when they did it, it's okay. I can understand. He's a chemical genius.
Yes.
And then they would use it every so often before he ran out of web fluid. Or he didn't have money to buy the chemicals for the web fluid.
Well, remember, too, there was a brief moment when Spider-Man went into some scientist and he told him about this web fluid. And the guy stupidly said, really, we need something to be permanent.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this guy went through his whole career going, I am so stupid.
Well, it's like with Post-it notes. Remember, the person who created Post-it notes, at first, they were trying to create a new adhesive. And the problem was it wasn't strong enough for anything. So the people at 3M were like, yeah, this is a failure. Who cares? And then he started using it for Post-it notes. And it wasn't for a while until 3M says, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So they had the idea for the adhesive for Post-it notes from what I've read, years before they actually used it.
Yeah. And I can understand why nobody else has come up with it because it disappears in an hour. Even if you were lucky enough to get a sample of Spider-Man's web in and not get it like stuck to your fingers or anything, by the time you got back to a lab or anywhere where you can analyze it, it disappears. I don't know if there's any chemical trace left behind, but it was something that was addressed like years ago. Like, why doesn't he do something with this? And more importantly, there's other things like that too, where it's like when Ben Reilly came along, he created so many different ways to use the webbing that Peter Parker never thought of.
Yeah.
So, and he never uses either, but that's a different subject.
But then they made the webbing organic for, I don't know, a week.
Yeah.
And since it's gone back to he has to create it, they have never done where he runs out of webbing. They've never done where he can't afford the chemicals or there's a problem with getting the chemicals or anything. He just kind of always has it, which to me is a waste of the idea. Either go back to the organic webbing because you're not using it as a story point anymore, or if you're going to use it as a story point, it's a weakness he has to deal with. But that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about Hank Pym going crazy.
Going crazy.
And becoming a
Writing's lazy.
And they always go back to, well, he's crazy.
I don't buy that. I've read earlier Avengers and stuff. You don't get a hint that he's crazy.
The only time was when he became Yellow Jacket. And if you've read that story, he was working with chemicals and there was a mistake and the chemicals exploded and it messed with his head. And Jan, because this is how Marvel women were in the 60s, were like, hey, this new personality wants to marry me, so let's not fix it. Yeah. But it was that one time. And then Jim Shooter takes it and turns it into, well, I want to have a member of the Avengers go bad. Because we have characters who are bad turn good, but we rarely have characters who are good turn bad. And Shooter's was very disingenuous about the whole thing. And I think it came off so poorly, was done so badly.
And so quickly.
And that the artist messed it up. And there wasn't time to fix it. Dude, you had Romita's Raiders there fixing everything. You had a couple of months before, you made Gene Colan redraw entire issues of the Avengers from scratch because you didn't like them. Don't hand me that crap, okay? Don't hand me that. You chose to do that story. It came off poorly. So it's you wanted to blame it on somebody else. I've worked with people like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that Hank Pym has ever recovered. And the problem is that they had a perfectly good Ant-Man replacement, Scott Lang, who's just kind of vanished into the ether.
Yeah.
So that's one of mine. Another one from around that time that we can also we can lay down at Jim Shooter's feet, and that is Miss Marvel giving birth to her rapist and being taken away to an alternate dimension where she would never be seen again.
Yeah. Again, this is 12-year-old Joe. I don't know if I was 12. Reading this for the first time. That was the first Avengers
We were
comic
about 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was the storyline was Ms. Marvel was pregnant. And boy, were they hinting that it was Captain America's kid.
Yeah, which would have been more interesting.
You go back and you read that, and it's like, wow, they are really pushing that these two have gotten it on.
Get it on.
But then we get issue 200, and it's this weird, rapey story that is so creepy and wrong.
Which I will say, as a kid, I totally missed that paragraph. And then my machine kind of nudged her along.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't think much of it. It was just like, whatever. Until Avengers Annual 10 came along, and I'm like, oh, okay. I guess maybe I was dazzled by the George Perez art.
Well, and if you go back and you look at that story, it's written by 4 people? So the story itself is just a mess.
Yeah. And again, it was one of those, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm thinking like nowadays where, plot points that happen now occurred from something that might have happened issues ago or years ago. But this Marcus guy, he just popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
As far as I know. I mean, I went back and I slowly started collecting other issues. Like, wow, this guy really did come out of left field, didn't he?
He came out of nowhere, and thank goodness Chris Claremont. Oh yeah, and then he died.
Yep. He died.
So it's like, yeah, no, get rid of everything involved in this story.
Yep. He got sick,
Get it gone. So what it was, Ms. Marvel was pregnant, and that was the build up to issue 200. And then when issue 200 came out, it was this cosmic. She gives birth, and the baby starts getting older immediately to the point where it's a full-grown man within a few pages. And he had, after Ms. Marvel's book had been canceled, he'd brought her to Limbo, where he lives, made her fall in love with him, got her pregnant, sent her back to our universe with his essence in the fetus, so that when he was born, he could live in our world. But
hang on a second, I gotta rinse my mouth off. That left a really bad taste.
But then they go back to Limbo. Now I will give some behind the scenes stuff on this, because if you remember, at this time, Ms. Marvel's book was canceled and she was written out.
Yeah.
A few months later, Spider-Woman's book was canceled and she was written out. And both of those were kind of edicts from Stan under the Gary Conway era, to where, oh crap, we have to get female versions of our characters out there because I've been out in Hollywood and they're wanting to do female versions of our characters. And Shooter just wiped them both away. And while he denies it, if you read Jim Shooter's stuff after he became editor-in-chief, he hated women. He got rid of women characters. He turned Tigra from, this very interesting character to a slut who hits on everybody with no personality other than, oh, I'm going to rub up against you, Jarvis, because, I'm a woman and that's what us women do. If we're not trying to get you to marry us, we're wanting to sleep with you. Oh, Jarvis. Oh. Jarvis, bring me a mouse, because I'm a cat woman. Oh, God. It was hurtful. But thank God Chris Claremont stepped in, brought the character back, and basically said, I'm putting her in the X-Men, so you can't fuck with her anymore. Because Chris Claremont was the one who wrote the final issues of Ms. Marvel. He also wrote a bunch of the issues of Spider-Woman, brought her into the X-Men as well, because Shooter didn't really mess with the X-Men because it was outselling everything. And the editors, first Louise Simonson, who had been an editor far longer than Shooter and kind of knew how to work with him so that he would leave her alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ann Nocenti was the X-Men editor after that. And she had been Shooter's personal assistant, so she also knew how to work with Jim Shooter so that he would leave her alone. She's the one who got them the trip to France.
Oh, yeah,
If you remember that.
Yeah.
For the X-Men, they're doing so well that we're going to give everybody a trip to France. No, what it was that they got invited to a big French comic convention, and Ann Nocenti was able to, because she'd been Shooter's assistant, she knew how to work the corporate end to get everybody to get Marvel to pay for their trip over there.
Well done.
But what it was, basically, it's okay. You've screwed up these characters. We're going to bring them over to the X-Men and we're going to rehabilitate them, which is why Ms. Marvel's name had already been given to somebody else, so they made her Binary.
Binary, cool.
And Spider-Woman's name had been given to somebody else, so Jessica Drew just became a private investigator.
Yep.
Now, if you have any stories that you want to throw in as this screwed up a character or screwed things up at Marvel for a long time, jump right in.
What was the one I said in the beginning? We're off camera. The whole,
Sins Past.
Oh my. Okay. I get the behind the scenes stuff,
which we'll talk about afterward. But
yeah,
let's just talk about the story itself.
Oh, man. Oh, Norma Osborn seduces Gwen Stacy. She goes off to France, has kids. Mary Jane's the only one that knows. When the kids come back, they get ready to kill Peter Parker after Peter tries to sleep with his daughter.
No. It was they tried to kill Peter Parker because they had been told that Peter Parker was their dad and had abandoned them.
So, where to start? Okay.
Even though they were like, what, a year or two younger than Peter?
Yeah.
Because, reasons.
Well, and that's how they got rid of them, too. They said they were aggravated clones, or I forget. It's all a blur. First off, okay. In my young mind, okay, Peter and Gwen never bumped privates, okay? With this story, the way it would have been written, that it was Peter's kids. I would have been like, okay, they did bump privates. They made a mistake. Gwen being Gwen ran away. Run away! Yeah, okay, there's so many different bad ideas with that one. Really, you left your kids in Paris and you never once thought to tell Peter, which could be why she was so whiny before the Green Goblin killed her. Instead, it was Norm Osborn got to bump uglies with Gwen and get her pregnant. Ew.
And the way it was written, it was once again rape.
Yes. He used his goblin pheromones or whatever the hell he called it and essentially seduced her.
And we got to see his face during it, and it was, should not be in a Spider-Man comic.
I got to rinse my mouth off.
I've talked in the past, Spider-Man should always be a PG-13 book. Spider-Man shouldn't eat anybody's heads, and we shouldn't have rape. Because Spider-Man is very much Spider-Man, with the cartoons and everything, it's always been, I'm not going to say kids book, but for age, teen, it's aimed at teenagers in their head. If you're going to do a story like that, it should be a mature reader's story, like the Spider-Man Reign, where it says, hey, this is mature readers.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's worse now because it would be like me doing something with one of my daughter's friends. I'm like, I retroconned it away when I'm not thinking about it. And I would have done this because it could have brought in some more interesting things. It wasn't Gwen, it was a clone. Because the Jacko was dicking around then, and this could have been his first attempt at having a clone. Everybody thought it was Gwen, which could explain anyways, that's how I would have explained out of it, because it was just spectacularly bad. Again, they're adults. Rich men having young wives isn't unheard of in our society now.
Yeah, but how about a rich man seducing
don't go there.
Former girlfriend?
Yeah, it probably's happened. All I'm saying is it doesn't have to happen in our comic book.
And it can happen in some comics, but not in Spider-Man.
And it's just, in other aspects of the whole thing. Mary Jane knew about it, never once told Peter. They were married still at this time, weren't they?
Yes.
This was before. So, I mean, the only other one that drives me crazy is the fact that Mary Jane was pregnant and her daughter just magically disappeared and was never heard from again. But yeah, no, this whole storyline was a bad idea. And even now, because Peter and Norm are kind of, they've reached a stage where if they're not friends, they work together. I just read the solicitation for an upcoming book, Spectacular Spider-Man or something, where Norm decides he's going to teach all the younger spider things running around how to deal with villains, including maybe the Green Goblin. I'm like, guys, don't re-goblinize Norm, okay? It's boring. But the fact that Mary Jane would never have told Peter that or even thought about this, or that she'd even we figured out that these kids were put up for adoption, or I don't know. I'm so tongue-tied. I can't even think of just how bad this whole idea was. Now, the original idea was that they were Peter's kids, which I would have accepted a little bit more. Maybe not if I was reading it. Well, I don't buy that just kids read comics. But if I was a 12-year-old reading this, I'd be like, ew. But yeah, that if Marvel Unlimited wants to drop these and never publish them again, I would be perfectly happy. I seriously, I will reread Avengers: The Crossing before I reread this. And we all know how Cory feels about that.
And the thing about it is, it led nowhere. It was one of those things where if they went with it was Gwen and Peter's kids, it could have led somewhere even worse. So story-wise, it added nothing. Even if it was Peter and Gwen's kids, the direction they were going to go with it would have been a dead end. But with adding that, when Gwen, because they actually, what it was, there was a sequence at the end of Stan's run where Gwen went off to France so that Peter Parker could have angst.
Which I believe happened in the actual storyline.
Yes. Yeah.
So
they were filling in a hole.
Yeah, which wasn't really a hole to begin with, but whatever.
Well, what it was Stan was running out of ways to have Gwen be, oh, Peter,
Oh,
or Peter Parker going, oh, Gwen can't find out. So he had Gwen go away for a bit. And when she came back, that was when John Romita and Gary Conway were like, we can't do anything with Gwen. She's a nothing character. The only thing we could do is have them get married, and we don't want to marry Peter Parker. And that's when John Romita said, we could kill her. And Gary Conway was like, oh, yeah. And then he could be with Mary Jane, who's a far more interesting character. Let's go with that. But then to heap even more villainy on Norman Osborn, who'd already killed her,
yeah.
it adds nothing. So my next one is one that to this day I am still mad about.
Uh-oh.
Jean Grey coming back to life should never have been done. Period. And there was a huge fight at Marvel about it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay, the lead up to X Factor, it's all the original X-Men are getting back together. And one of the characters was blacked out, so it was a mystery. And it was going to be the Dazzler. And if you want proof, go back right after Defenders was canceled to make way for X Factor. There was a 4-issue miniseries called Beauty and the Beast, which created a relationship between the Beast and Dazzler. That was to be the lead-in. But then Kurt Busiek said that he had an idea for how Jean Grey could come back. And John Byrne, who never, ever, ever missed a point of a time when he could fuck with Chris Claremont, said, cool, let's do it. And he and Roger Stern, who Stern and Byrne were very close friends and kind of had the same feeling about Claremont, they got together with Shooter and Bob Layton and said, let's bring Jean Grey back. That way it's all of the original X-Men. And they went forward with that. And Claremont and Louise Simonson and Innocenti did everything they could to try and stop it. And we're told no. Because if you read the X-Men from Jean Grey's death to issue 175 of Uncanny X-Men, where he marries Madeline Pryor, the whole lead up is that Madeline may look like Jean, but she's very different. And then Mastermind tries to mess with Scott's brain to make it think, that, oh, it's Jean Grey come back to life and everything. But no, it really isn't. And that was the accumulation of the story. And Cyclops is written out. And for Claremont, that's the graduation. My story has been the new X-Men taking over from the old X-Men, and we're moving everybody on. That's why Cyclops got married and had a kid. So they bring Jean Grey back. Cyclops leaves his wife and kid.
Yes. Now here's where I'll jump in, because I had zero objections to Jean Grey coming back. However, that issue right there, that's where I object, because it's like very, very weak writing. It would have been more of an interesting dynamic had, I got to reform the X-Men, and Scott brings Madeline and her kid with, because then you could have had the dynamic, his ex-girlfriend's here, and she's back to what? And his wife is here, and she looks like who? And again, sooner or later, you'd have to write Madeline out, and you could have even gone the route, something happened. I would have maybe had something happen to Madeline and whomever, Nathan, so that Cable comes to be later on.
Or,
and again,
could
this
have
wasn't
the
the way it was
soap
planned.
opera of Jean Grey and Angel Because remember,
Yes.
that was the original love triangle.
Yep.
But
And
think of
also, you
all
could have brought the Dazzler in for Hank. Oh my God, you could have just had some fun soap opera going on. Granted, the whole we're hunting mutants to save mutants things was kind of like, hang on, I got to take another drink on the bad taste in my mouth.
Well, I'm going to give another behind the scenes thing. Remember how Bob Layton only wrote the first 5 issues and Louise Simonson took over and he was gone?
Mm-hmm.
What it was, he wrote the first 5 issues and he was late with the 6th issue. So Louise Simonson came in to do the fill-in for 6 and 7. And that's when there was some editorial shift. And they went to Bob Layton and said, yeah, we don't like the idea you're doing with them hunting mutants. And Louise Simonson says we could get Walt Simonson to draw it. So bye.
Goodbye.
And you and Shooter were best buds. So bye. But story-wise, think of all the convoluted bullshit that came out of Jean Grey coming back. She was never the Phoenix. So
Yes,
she
she was.
doesn't know about all that stuff.
No, she
Oh,
doesn't.
and Scott abandoned his wife and kid, and we didn't do anything about it, and now we have to fix all of that. And oh, now we have to fix why Madeline Pryor, she's an evil clone made by Mr. Sinister, who's also possessed by demons. and
Oh.
and we send the kid into the future where he becomes Cable, because we're going to graft that onto the Cable character. And here's all of this convoluted stuff of how Scott and Jean raised Nathan in the future without time traveling there. And oh my God, I've told this story a bunch of times. My son asked me when he was in his teens, he was reading some X-Men stuff, and he says, what's the origin of Cable? And after about 15 minutes, he says, I cannot deal with this. This is giving me such a headache. I need to go. I need to go now. And he went and he had to go and get some McDonald's and eat at McDonald's so that he could just get out of the house. It drove him from the house. All of that stuff. Now, if Jean Grey had stayed dead, I think it would have been a much better. We would have had a much better X-Men run, but also the death of Jean Grey was an important point that marked a huge evolution in comic storytelling. How many years? That was one of the first trade paperbacks that came out. In the 80s, when you would talk about the X-Men, that was the story you talked about. The death of the Phoenix. That was even in a time where I remember years after it came out, people were like, oh, I don't read superhero comics, but I read the X-Men because that's not regular superhero comics. I mean, it's a more serious science fiction comic.
Mm-hmm.
And having her come back, sort of made it okay for the X-Men to become so unbelievably convoluted. It would
Yeah.
be like if they brought Gwen back. Because
Sorry, I
Gwen's,
just sniggered a bit.
yeah, but Gwen has never come back. They've teased it.
Yeah.
They've hinted at it. They had a clone, but Gwen is still dead.
They dealt with the clone too eventually.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and you remember what was the big thing when the Sentinel was judging everybody on Earth?
Yes.
He gave a closure to Peter and Gwen.
Yeah.
Which to me is good. Hey, I got an idea. Why don't we have Peter seduce Spider Gwen?
Although I got to be honest, in Original Sin, when they had Cindy Moon as Spider-Man's dark secret, he didn't know about it. She was someone else who'd gotten bitten by the same spider.
Oh.
But then because they were both, powers came from the same spider and everything, they couldn't keep their hands off each other. I thought that was fantastic, and they've kept them completely apart ever since. But it was, oh, we're the only two like us in the universe. Our pheromones, our spider pheromones, are making it so we can't control ourselves. I thought that was cool. Here's my next one.
Okay.
And this one, you can point to over 20 years of stupid decisions because of it. The Spider-Man marriage. Now, I'll give the backstory. Peter Parker.
It was happening in the comic strip, so they decided to do it in the comic right after Mary Jane said no. I'm sorry, did I cut you off at the pass?
Well, you left out a bunch of stuff.
Well, yeah, I was trying to get to the meat of the argument.
So, Mary Jane was written out of the Spider-Man books before issue 200 because Marv Wolfman didn't like her as much as everybody else did. So he wrote her out. Oh, she's too flighty to be Peter Parker's girlfriend. Even though they'd spent, almost 4 years making her a deeper, richer, more interesting character. And Peter Parker proposed to her, and she said no, and blew him off with a joke, and then didn't see him anymore.
Yeah.
So they brought her back, and they did a story where they were, tentatively trying to get back together. Peter proposed to her again. She said no. This time we found out why, because, her parents had, such a bad marriage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they were slowly moving her out of the book again. But in the comic strip, Stan had her as Peter Parker's girlfriend because he was one of the guys who, after, he got tired of being yelled at about Gwen dying, he said, oh, yeah, Mary Jane is a good girlfriend for Peter Parker. But the comic strip was losing papers. So he fell back on what everybody falls back on. Hey, let's have a marriage.
We're going to have a marriage.
And he got tons of publicity for it. They had a ceremony at Yankee Stadium before one of the Yankees games. He got this famous designer to make the dress for the actress who was going to be Mary Jane in that. And Jim Shooter jumped on and said, sure, we'll have him get married in the comic. And if you go back to that annual where it happened, Jim Shooter wrote it. None of the regular Spider team was on it. They weren't involved in the writing. They weren't involved in the art because nobody on the Spider team wanted anything to do with it. They thought it was a terrible idea. But Shooter was editor-in-chief. He forced it through, even though there were stories already done afterward. Kraven's Last Hunt was already done and set to go. But they had to interrupt it for the Spider wedding. Okay, we'll have 2 issues to build up to it, and then you go. And they had to kind of rewrite some stuff because, remember, Kraven's Last Hunt happened right after they got married. So right after they get married, Peter Parker is buried alive. Buried alive. Buried alive. And right after Shooter...
buried alive.
Right after Shooter has it done, he gets fired. So people at Marvel were like, crap, he left us this bag of dog crap as he walked out the door. And they were trying to figure out what they could do to fix it. They didn't want Peter Parker to be divorced. They didn't want to kill Mary Jane because they'd done that to Gwen. And, David Michelinie and Gary Conway wrote stories about them being married to kind of fix it. Gary Conway wrote this beautiful graphic novel called Parallel Lives that sort of did all the lead up to the marriage that should have been done in the comic ahead of time. He had to do it 2 years later because it's like, well, shit, we got to retcon this somehow. We have to figure out why she kept saying no, and then all of a sudden she said yes. Okay, here. But then about 92, 93, everybody working on Spider-Man did not want Peter Parker married. How can we get out of it? How can we get out of it? Joe, how did they think they could get out of it?
The devil made him do it. I don't know.
No! Spider-Man has been a clone since 1976.
Oh, see, there are some
For
stories that
20
just blot out.
years, we've been following Spider-Man's clone. The real Spider-Man has been out wandering around for years. Nobody knew about him. The
Yeah.
clone saga was their way to try and end the marriage.
And I remember you going, "This is a terrible idea."
At the time, I said this is not going to work because people are going to
Yeah.
pick up a Spider-Man comic and go, "Who's Ben Reilly?
Yeah.
Where's J. Jonah Jameson? Where's the Daily Bugle? Where's Aunt May?"
Although at the time, I would say it wasn't that widespread. Nowadays, you say Spider-Man, everybody knows who he is, who their characters are. Back then, you were still pretty much in a comic book desert. I mean, and I've said it before.
Spider-Man was known. You got to remember,
Spider-Man was known.
Spider-Man was the number two cartoon in the U.S.
Not the background guys, not as much as you'd think. Because as I always said, people, what's the best-selling comic? X-Men. Is that a porn comic? Nowadays, you say Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers, boom. It's part of American culture.
Well,
not so much so in the 80s and 90s.
I would say by the middle of the 90s, most kids knew because X-Men was the number one cartoon.
Yeah, but before that, no.
Right.
And again, adults wouldn't know. And when adults came stumbling in trying to find, well, my kids like that X-Men movie. I'm looking for a comic. Oh.
So
anyways, just it's the way the mindset was back then. It is so different now.
Yeah.
Especially for some of you kids who have just started like in the last 10 years. You're lucky. And we're telling you comics to avoid. So make a note. There'll be a test later.
So that didn't work.
Yeah.
So John Byrne came on. I know we can't kill her. We can't kill her, but we can make her seem like she's dead and write her out of the book. And Peter thinks she's dead.
Isn't that the plane explosion?
Yeah. And that lasted until Byrne was booted from the book.
Yeah.
So then you had J. Michael Straczynski come on, and he and Kevin Smith were going to do the story to end the wedding. Nobody remembers that part, but I do.
Okay.
Because Kevin Smith was really tight with Joe Quesada. Remember, they'd done that Daredevil book. And Kevin Smith, he's going to do one Spider-Man book, and J. Michael Straczynski's going to do the other book. But then Kevin Smith's movie career picked up again, and it's like, well, I can't smoke pot and write comics and make movies.
Not at the same time.
And J. Michael Straczynski, for a while with the marriage, was just kind of treading water. Until finally, they were like, okay, Kevin Smith's not coming. We got to figure out some way to get rid of the marriage. And you could talk more about J. Michael Straczynski's part of it. But just think, they spent 20 years in Spider-Man comics trying to get rid of the marriage. And when they did, there were fans who were furious about it and still are. There are people who still, I won't read Spider-Man because of the way they got rid of the marriage. You don't realize Marvel hated that marriage and wanted it gone from day one. And they basically tried different things and they were all rejected. And I think they finally got to the point where no matter what we do, they're going to reject it. So fuck it. Let's just do this and stick with it.
Yeah.
So you could talk about J. Michael Straczynski's feelings about ending the marriage.
Yeah. And the thing is I don't remember. All I know is he didn't like the way it was going. He wanted his name off it. We've talked about this in the past where Straczynski is kind of a funny fellow because if you come in and you say, we want you to do A, B, C, D, if somebody comes along and says, well, we want you to do A, B, C, F, he's like, no, he doesn't need it. He's got other things going on. That's why so many of the projects, he walked away from. No, the editor changed it on him in such a way that it wasn't worth him doing it. And again, I don't know. Cory, you're more of a writer than me. Have you ever written anything for someone and then, no, we want you to do something totally different?
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Don't want to do it. That's not what we agreed to.
But here's the thing.
You may do it because you're not as high level as Straczynski is.
I will also do it because if I'm working for someone, I write for PW Insider, okay? One of the things that that my editor, Mike Johnson, has said is do not swear unless you're quoting somebody swearing in a promo. That's a guideline he gave me.
Mm-hmm.
I followed the guideline. I wrote for the college newspaper. I've written for other things. If they give you the guidelines, they're hiring you to do this. Now, if
But what if they come along and they say, you know what, we want you to start bad mouthing AEW. Don't care how good it is, just do it this way. If they change the parameters of why you were hired to begin with.
It depends on the parameter they're changing.
And in this case, Straczynski didn't like the parameter. All he asked was that his name be taken off it. And that's where Quesada stepped in and said, no, it won't sell if your name's off it. Please put your name on it. Against his better judgment, he left his name on it. And just like you said, with the aforementioned sins of the Osborne, it was, I see to this day, I'm not so much upset with what they did with it. I'm just more upset with what came after it. And again, it was, what was the storyline?
Brave New Day?
No. I'm leading up to what they did. Peter Parker was outed during Civil War. He had a number of confrontations. The one with the Kingpin, written by Peter David, was incredible, where he basically just, in prison, took his mask off and utterly destroyed the Kingpin in front of his peers. Which, when you go back and you look at the retro continuity now, because of what happens in, what was this whole damn thing called? The storyline before
Civil War?
No, the what we're leading up to, the Mistopheles changing the marriage thing. What was
One
that
More Day.
four-parter? One More Day. Thank you. One More Day, Brand New Day. That's what came. Peter was basically hunted. There were some fun things, like when J. Jonah Jameson discovered, I've been buying pictures from Peter all these years. Flunk. There's lawsuits that popped up. Most of the stuff that I remember fondly, Peter David wrote. But eventually they had to get to the point where, okay, we need to put the genie back in the bottle. No one needs to know who Peter is. We need to get rid of the marriage. And
well, and
during that time period,
the reason they had Peter Parker's identity revealed is they knew this was where it was going.
Well, and also part of the storyline was somebody took a shot at Peter and got Aunt May.
Yes.
Which again would have been a perfect opportunity to let her go. Not necessarily. Who is it? Fabian Nia said so. Death in comics is stupid.
Yeah.
Because you can always bring him back. So that's what Peter went on. Why he went after the Kingpin. Aunt May was dying. Now, Mistopheles comes in and basically makes a deal. You give me your marriage. And they're like, why? Well, your marriage is one of those anomalies I hate. It's so pure, it can never be destroyed. I want to keep it.
No, what it was, if Mary Jane and Peter had a kid, that kid would be able to destroy Mephisto.
Oh, see how long it's been since I read it? I totally missed that.
He told them that, but he told Mary Jane, if you two have a child, that child will destroy me, and I need to stop that child from being born.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a second. However, Mistopheles never had this type of power before, where he could alter reality in such a way.
It's
So
magic.
it's like,
We don't need to explain it.
yeah. Well, they could have explained it. He had a reality stone in his possession briefly. It seems like everybody in the Marvel Universe, at one time or another, gets a reality stone or mountain or whatever. And again, to me, it would have been like a Doctor Strange moment, or somebody come in and said, "We're taking this from you, and there's a jar with the marriage burning bright. Why? Well, I'll take this from Neil Gaiman. By having that brightness, it makes his portion of hell a little worse for everybody that's in it."
True.
Anyways, and then the big one is when they finally agreed to it. Mary Jane says like one thing, and Mistopheles has that one big eye, one little eye, like, huh?
Mephisto. You keep saying Mistopheles, who's a cat.
No, he's from the song from the Rolling Stones, Mistopheles.
It's Mephisto at Marvel.
That's your problem. Anyways, the point being is
The magical Mr. Mistopheles is very angry with you.
He's very angry at you. He ends up, I guess what she says, we find out later, I want him to be happy. Anyways, it was whatever. To me, the Brand New Day was the bad part, because all of a sudden, Harry's alive. Really? Well, he was dead, which I think was a dumb idea anyways. Everybody's happy. He's got his cast back. He's got his... it was too glaring a change. I can accept what happened. I've been reading comics a long time. That didn't bother me. The Brave New World, or whatever it was called, Brand New Day, Brave New World, New World Order, whatever it was. Peter was an ass. I was like, what the? Even in all the continuity I read, he never really was that bad. And again, it grew out of it. What did it take? About a year before they finally got their footing going, or a couple of years? I don't remember.
It took a couple of months for them to kind of figure out where they were going.
Yeah.
Because remember, you also had Mark Waid would write a story, and then Bob Gale would write a story, and then Dan Slott would write a story, and then Mark Waid would write a story, and Joe Kelly would write a story, and that's how they were able to get 3 books out a month. They had different creative teams.
It was a hot mess. I didn't like the characterization of Peter. It was too jarring from the way it was before. I don't know what these guys were thinking. If they were thinking like, yeah, we're just going back to the way Peter was in college.
Very much, yeah.
It got better, but yeah, that. Anyways, it was just a bad thing. I would say a bad decision, but I was still buying the damn book. Now you said what was the reasons? I'll call him Big Red, since you don't like my pronunciation. What was the reason why Big Red didn't want those two to be married?
Because if they had a kid, that kid would grow up to be able to destroy Mephisto.
Now remember what I said earlier. They already had a kid.
Yeah.
The kid just disappeared. Okay, Marvel, I just gave you a big ass storyline. Boom. I at least want a credit for it.
Well, everything eventually gets used.
Which could explain why the kid was taken out of continuity to begin with.
Yeah.
Because I'd have to go back and look to see who did it. Oh. He's like, okay.
It was the green guy. It was Norman Osborn.
Was it Norman?
Yes, it was Norman. Norman Osborn had hired the nurse who told Peter that their child had died. And the last we see is she's taking the child away.
I would have said,
but we don't know if the child's alive or dead. We just see her taking away the body.
Yeah. See, I would go
with Norman Osborn being a good guy, it would be cool if in like a year or two he went, oh shit! I forgot.
I remember. Yeah, okay. Come on. Anyways, yeah, it was a hot mess.
But just think of the horrible mess that they got themselves into around that marriage. All of those horrible things that happened that drove that people still complain about the Clone Saga, even though they've been able to sell there's the 2 omnibus for the Clone Saga and the 2 omnibus for the Ben Reilly stories, and they've reprinted those at least 3 times, but people are still like, oh god, that was the worst thing that ever happened to Spider-Man.
I don't know if it was the worst, but they couldn't sustain it. The stories were interesting. To me, then the Clone Saga, the most interesting thing was when he met Venom for the first time.
Yes.
And Venom and Peter Parker had a détente. And
Ben Reilly was like,
how?
why haven't you destroyed this thing?
Yeah.
So that I liked.
That was probably it. After a while, it just got,
Well, you know
the
what's
sad thing is they showed with Miles Morales, you could have had 2 guys running around being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But that was later. And a whole different podcast.
The last one I'm going to give, we don't even need to talk about very long because we're way over on time.
Yeah.
The worst story they ever did that caused more damage, Ultimatum.
Yes.
Ultimatum was this big cataclysmic story in the Ultimate Universe, and there were 2 things about it that killed the Ultimate Universe. You can actually go and you can look at the sales charts, and after Ultimatum, the sales on the Ultimate Universe just dropped like a rock. Except on Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which is why Ultimate Spider-Man is still, Miles Morales is still around.
Yeah.
Even though the whole, hey, we've saved this character, we're putting them in the Marvel universe. They've done that a couple of times, and with Gwen Stacy, it's a mess. Because it's, oh look, Gwen Stacy and Captain Stacy are now in the Marvel universe, but they're both dead. But okay, I have a headache. Ultimatum was this big story where it's okay. This isn't the Marvel universe, so we could have massive destruction and lots of characters dying, and coming out of it will have changed everything. Well, they changed everything. And they raised the price of all the Ultimate books. Going into Ultimatum, they were $2.99. Coming out of Ultimatum, they were $3.99, which did not help sales at all because they were already sort of shaky sales-wise. The big creative teams that had started the Ultimate Universe were mostly gone. You still had Brian Michael Bendis, but everybody else had moved on. And you got rid of so many characters that it was almost like a reboot. And people were like, this is a good place to stop. And even though you brought in really good people like Jonathan Hickman, you couldn't bring people back on after that. They were like, yeah, Ultimatum pissed me off because it killed off characters I like. It made it so that the Ultimate Universe was cool because it was like the Marvel Universe without all this extra baggage of 50 years of continuity. And now you've got all this 20 years of continuity that you have to know to figure out what's going on. And it's even more convoluted than the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
And people were like, yeah, I'm tapping out.
I will say I enjoyed the story for what it was, but it killed the Ultimate Universe, and it really should have been more like a what if.
Yeah.
Rather than this happened. Because once you start killing off all these characters, you can never bring them back.
And
well, maybe, but it would be blah.
And with that, you got, let's say, okay, we're going to do this huge story where everything, there's massive destruction and the world completely changes. If you don't have an idea of where you're going after that to hook somebody, they're going to look at it as, oh, cool, I don't have to read it anymore. They blew up New York and they killed off the Avengers. Okay, cool. The end.
Yep. It was fun while it lasted.
It reminds me a lot, and this is a weird one because I'm going way back. One of the reasons why George Perez stayed on as writer and the artist they got drew a lot like George Perez is because on Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman had never sold. Not since the 40s. It had not sold well. Even with the TV show, it did not sell well. Even the revamp where she became, Diana Rigg did not sell well. The only reason it was still in print were two things. One, they were able to license the stories to other countries, and that's where they made the profit. And two, the contract with the creator was if there was ever a month without a Wonder Woman comic, the rights would revert back to the creator's heirs. So they bought out that contract before they had George Perez take over, because after Crisis, there was going to be a few months without a Wonder Woman comic. But they were scared to death that, okay, when George Perez leaves, all the readers are going to leave too. So let's keep him on as long as we can. Keep his name on the book. Have him do covers. And they were right. When George Perez finished his run on the book, the sales dropped. They didn't drop as bad as they thought because, they had Brian Boland covers and the book was well done. And then they did let's replace Wonder Woman with somebody who's more violent. That always sells.
And then she could walk around in a leather outfit.
But with the Ultimate line, it was okay. All of the Warren Ellis is left, Mark Muller is left, Brian Hitch is left. We've got these new creators that we're bringing in from the indies, but they're not names yet. And oh crap, everybody left. So there you go. There is the last. Now I have a bunch more, so we may revisit that at some point.
Yeah, this is kind of fun.
But we got to do ads.
Oh no, you mean like these guys, our sponsors?
Yeah.
Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files that backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks.
And because we went overtime, we're not going to have a retro review.
However, I still have
What's in the bag?
What's in the bag?
By the way, have you seen there is a new story at WWE where they've brought in this big crate? And the whole thing is, what's in the crate? What's in the crate? What's in the crate?
Hey, I want credit for that. All right.
Well,
I have
the problem is
they've
done it before, and somebody showed, here, because one of the last times they did it, what was in the crate, Joe?
The gobbledygooker.
No, Kane.
Oh my gosh.
That was the introduction of Kane.
Interesting.
So what I have said is, with this new crate that will be opened at the Elimination Chamber, it either needs to be the gobbledygooker or Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
Yeah, but she's still using her head, so it'd be tough.
Mm-hmm. But what's in the bag, Joe?
While you were talking, I pulled out one at random because I still got about 20 things here. And I have a Vampirella Mystery Blind Bag, issue number 8. So the first thing I want to do is I want to power up the old eBays to see if what I've got is Any good? Yep. And now, because I got to open the bag. Ooh, this one's really tight against the bag. I must do this thing delicately. Oh, not my finger. Seriously, I mean, it's like normally there's enough room where you can just like slice it. I am doing such a micro cut. Do, 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 doop. All right, let's see what's in the bag. What's in the bag? I open her up. Let's see, Vampire number 8. It's in pretty good shape. It doesn't have the same problem the ultimate ones did. And I go backwards. And let's see, they do list all their books. Good thing you can edit this out. Excuse me while I edit this out. Sure you can. You're a big boy. All right, to the eBays. I have to go Vampirella number 8 blind bag. And what it does is it'll tell me, give me an idea of which one it is. Oh, I see some of the variants. And I don't see who done did it though. This guy's offering a bunch of variants for $50. This one, it's let's see who did the. It is Goten, Goetten, and this person's got. I haven't seen one for sale separate, but it looks like this is what you would, if I got the term right, the trade. Oh, hang on a second. Now this person has it says it's Jonathan Lau. And he's got the virgin cover for $30. So I imagine this one's probably like a $20 version, maybe less. Nothing too exciting. Oh, all right. There's your blind bag for the day.
Now, blind bags at Marvel are changing, Joe.
I hope so. Boy, that last one was terrible. Terrible.
Because at Comics Pro, they said that the 616-day Marvel mystery bag for June, which will be an offer for DoomQuest 1, they're going to have an extremely limited print run. The mystery bag will feature a black and white pencil version of DoomQuest number 1. There'll be 2 different covers. Your free bag will have 1 cover and the for sale bag. The other thing is, if it's an original sketch cover, they will have a note so that it's different from the blank cover variants. Because what they found was people were taking the blank cover variants and drawing on it and saying, hey, it's a Robert Downey Jr. sketch.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was no notation on the special pre-sketched covers. The other thing is, in the 616-day Marvel Mystery Bag, you get the exclusive black and white edition of DoomQuest 1, plus one of 3 facsimile comics, and a foil Doom mask, which is probably what they'll be using to keep the comic from getting damaged. Rather than like a backing board or anything, is, we'll have a foil cover type thing that will be the backing board, and it's a mask of Dr. Doom. So there will be a special limited print run, a limited selling window. Most stores will be getting 2 of those mystery bags. Then the other mystery bags will have the, if there's an original sketch, it'll state that. They also say that the covers listed, the main cover and regular open to order variants, will not be in the blind bags. They will be special covers that are only in the blind bags. Because currently, in the blind bag, it's one of the special covers that stores can just order. So they're changing up their blind bags a bit and making it a better idea, in my opinion.
I don't know. That sounded really convoluted. Put it all in a blind bag. It's all random.
Now it's
because what you end up doing is you end up with like a shop. I'll order 50 to open for myself to try to get one of these real expensive variants.
And why aren't they doing it now?
Because most of the time they're selling out too fast.
Yeah.
I can only say I found a handful of bags in the wild. I see them at cons occasionally, and then I got Tim up at Granite City. He's trying to hold. I told him hold two of everything. I don't care what the price is. Just hold them so we can have some fun on the show.
Yeah. And I think we're not going to see the end of blind bags until you start seeing them on the shelf.
Yeah.
Once you see, if you were to go into a comic shop on a Wednesday and last week's blind bag is on the shelf, that's when you know it's going to start fading.
Yep.
But, for the people who complain about all the extra covers and all of the blind bags and all of this stuff, shops need that shit.
Yeah, and
to
it's
sell.
It's happening in toys. It's been happening in cards.
Yeah.
You got those little tiny boxes where, you open up the character, you don't know who's in it.
And the other thing is, it's different from in the 90s where it's, okay, this is a special cover and it costs $1.50 or $2 more. And that's the comic. You don't have a choice. With special covers now, you choose to order a special cover that costs more.
Yeah.
And I
in the
think
case
that's
of the
very
blind,
different.
In the case of the blind bags, if they're doing them right, they're exclusive to the blind bag.
Yeah.
In other words, if you want to buy it, well, I don't know, like this one I just did, I'm not that impressed. I'll put it on the eBays.
So, but now it's time for my favorite part of the show.
Oh, is this where we drink hint water as fast as we can and see how loud our belch is?
No, it's where I play the song on my Spider-Gwen light up talker toy.
Yes, that creepy old man in the toy aisle was Cory looking for the latest Spider-Gwen stuff. I didn't hear a thing.
Well, maybe I'll drop it in, but it's the theme song from the Spider-Man cartoon. I've already eaten all the candy, though. It's one of those candy things where you push the button and it lights up and it plays the song. And then you have the crappy little candy pellets in a small package at the bottom that, you get like a swallow of candy.
A swallow.
Now, it's freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Oh, there is so many things going on right now. Today alone, I think it's called D&H down in Shakopee. A store I've yet to hit has a sale going on. I think they're doing it's more like the Toy Posse show that pops up every so often. Dealers coming in, selling stuff. There's a garage sale con. I think our old buddy Mark Murdo's doing it. Tomorrow, Coon Rapids Nerding Out is doing their show where they let dealers in and sell stuff, which I think is a really cool idea. If I had a large area, I maybe have done that for people. Up at Maplewood Mall, there's a maker's market, which is not only collectibles, but could be other variant things. So all these shows are popping up. There's card shows all over. There's one in Rochester today. Why am I freaking out? Tell them, Strode.
You don't have a paycheck.
Nope. Yep. The shutdown's still going on. Now we're recording this on Saturday the 21st. Congress gets together in a couple days. Maybe they'll open it up. I'm not betting on it. Most of the guys I work with at my job are betting on a long shutdown, unless they happen to be more right wing and they're thinking, no, it'll happen. It'll happen. The most insidious thing about this shutdown, it's only Department of Homeland Security. Not a lot of what Homeland Security does outside of what ICE is doing, you see, because a lot of it's behind the scenes. You don't see Secret Service. Maybe you see them walking with the president. You don't see them half the time. You'll see TSA only if you're flying. If you don't fly, it's not your concern. So it's a very small part of the government that's closed, including the Coast Guard, things like that. But here's the insidious thing. 90 to 92% of the more than 26,000 employees have to work because we are deemed, air quotes, essential, which means we must work without immediate pay. And then there's maybe 22,000 that are going to go home and get furloughed. Will they get paid? Usually they don't, but this is a nasty administration. Right now they're like, well, we're not going to pay them furlough this time. Not really their choice. Congress will decide whether to do it or not. So it's not going to affect you. It's not going to affect things you do. It's not even going to affect you flying. But it is still there. And meanwhile, ICE is still doing what ICE is doing. They're funded by the big, bad, beautiful bill. So even though they're part of Homeland Security, they have a separate funding so they can keep doing what they're doing. So the reason they shut down, that part of the government that's causing the shutdown is still doing what they're doing. Which is why I'm not running around buying stuff. That's enough freaking for me. How about you, Cory? What you freaking on?
I really don't have any freaking right now. Things are kind of okay.
Well, good. Let's not jinx it.
What are you geeking on?
All right. What do I do when the government shuts down?
eBay, baby.
I go to eBay. So there's two things going on. First of all, I've been selling crap like crazy on eBay. I've been putting stuff on eBay store. I've been taking insane deals on eBay. So if you're looking for anything, I say this all the time, and our lovely listeners, you can go to my eBay store and see if there's anything you want. I'll cut you a deal on it. Just say you listen to the show. Send me a message before you buy, and I'll give you a great deal. The other thing that's going on is there's a bunch of shows coming up that I'll be actually going to. I've committed to 2 of them. The first one will be March 14th.
Lord knows you are committed.
Yeah, very true. Well, I must be if I'm working for free for the 3rd time this administration and maybe the 6th time in my entire career, not counting when I was out with my hips. Which, by the way, you can listen to those podcasts. They're there. How many years have we been doing this, Cory?
16.
Oh,
as
crazy.
of next week.
And I've only got 369 days till I can retire. Woohoo! The comic shows I'm prepping
69.
for are the Minnesota Comic Exchange has one March 14th at the Valley Creek Mall in Woodbury, Minnesota. I will be at that. I've been telling people, if you see something in the eBay store you want, I'll put it aside and bring it. I'm also digging through tons of variants. I've got probably 15 short boxes that I'm slowly filling up. I haven't quite, most of it's alphabetized. And then I think I'm going to separate older books because it's like people want the newer books. They don't necessarily want the older books. Unlike me, I see a Dell pile, I dive right into it because I love me my old Dell books. But so I'm prepping for that like crazy. The other one that's coming up is the EEAKK comic show, the crazy little comic book show. That will be held April 18th, and that's at the Mermaid Entertainment and Events Center in Mounds View, Minnesota. So those are 2 shows that I'm committing to. I will, of course, be helping out at SpringCon, which will be June 6th, which is when I'm guessing the shutdown will be over. That, of course, will be at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds Education Building. And, of course, if you go to any of their web pages, the MNCBA, the EEAKK, or the Minnesota Comic Exchange, you can get more information on what you're doing, where you're going, things like that. So I'm trying to make it a positive. Oh, and by the way, all those really, really cool sign books I put up, if Congress doesn't do anything next week, that and more will be up in my eBay store. We're talking some serious stuff. I imagine I'll talk about it in the upcoming weeks. Or maybe not. Maybe by next week I'll go, that'll be my geeking. Oh, the government's open. Hooray. Cory, what you geeking on?
I have looked at the solicitations for, what is it, May?
Mm-hmm.
JLA Avengers is being reprinted, an issue at a time. And you remember how much it cost when it came out, because it was the prestige format, right?
Yeah, I actually have some in my con stock that I haven't had them on eBay, but I just pulled them and I figured, well, let's move them.
How much are they on cover price?
Hang on, let me go dig one out. It is already alphabetized, so it's very easy to find. So this is issue number 1. Ooh, listen to that tape. Dun, 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 dun. The original price was $5.95. $9.50 for you poor Canadian people.
Oh, Joe, it's gone up 4 cents.
Holy crap!
The reprint is $5.99 an issue.
Well, and it'll
Now,
probably have
if
different
there's going
variant
to
covers.
be a foil cover, I am going to be all over that.
Oh yeah, you know they're going to do a foil cover. Foil covers, different artists doing variant covers.
No, these are the reprints.
Oh, they're not replicas?
Yeah, they're
Or
the
is that what they're called?
replicas. They're the
Oh, okay.
replicas. Like,
Yeah, but they do variant covers on the replicas.
the only variant cover they do is a foil cover.
Sometimes they'll do blank covers.
Well, okay. I haven't seen those in a while. But
Yeah.
nope, they're going to be reprinting. Marvel's doing issues 1 and 3, and DC's doing issues 2 and 4, if I remember right.
Yeah,
So
this one was JLA Avengers, and then it's Avengers JLA.
they only went up 4 cents. And that thing was 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So buy those babies up. That's one
And I
where I
imagine
think it may
I wonder
outsell the original.
I wonder if they'll come up with another trade.
Oh, they've got to.
Yeah, there's
But
only
if they
2 out
do-
there now.
If they do, you've got to wait till they do the Absolute. The Absolute is the
Oh,
perfect
yes.
version. It's treasury size, even if it doesn't have the extra book of all the back matter,
Oh, I
which
hope
has
it does.
all the art of the first Avengers JLA crossover that never saw print.
And then it has all the notes that Buzak
Yes.
wrote, who's who and where they are and where they're from. Especially
Yep.
when you get that at issue 4. I think it goes, take a deep breath. Here we go, baby.
But even that, it was treasury size, and Perez's art looks so beautiful at that size. Like I said earlier in the show, I am reading the Ultimate books to prepare for Ultimate End, and I read Ultimate Spider-Man from issue 1 to 24. One of the things that people say about Jonathan Hickman is that he's really good at these great big cosmic ideas and big set pieces, but he's not as good at the little personal stuff. All Ultimate Spider-Man is little personal stuff until you get to the Mysterio stuff, which was a conspiracy that is part of the story. But he nailed all the personal stuff so well. Reading, because I read it up to, I think, like issue 12 or something when it started to come out that, hey, when it ends, it ends. But all the stuff with Harry Osborn having Norman Osborn's personality in the Green Goblin armor was note perfect. The personal dynamic stuff between Peter and Mary Jane about how they worked out the fact that Peter kept a secret from her for the first few issues, how they worked out the fact that their lives fell apart because he was Spider-Man, how they worked out dealing with their children and all of the other stuff. The stuff with Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson as business partners. It was all just so wonderfully done. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much was because I think the people involved knew, even Hickman, who he said that his plan was after, the maker came back, okay, then somebody else will pick up the baton and go. But he himself knew, I'm going to have this story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And because it had a beginning, a middle, and an end, it felt more purposeful. It was better plotted. It really worked for me. And then the last thing I am geeking on, we have not done a sales talk episode in a while. And because we're coming up on episode 700, we probably won't for at least a month or so.
Yay. Oh, sorry.
But the
Darn.
January sales came out, and holy shit, is DC kicking Marvel's ass all over the place. Absolute Martian Manhunter is outselling Marvel's #1 book. They're adding more books to the Absolute line, and boy, it sure feels to me like the Absolute line may just replace the DC line, except for the fact that Mark Waid is working really hard on making sure the DC line itself is really cool. But man, the Absolute line is kicking everybody's ass sales-wise, and it's not slowing down. Because normally in the past, when they would do stuff like this, the secondary line would have, oh, the first issues do really well and then it would die off. Well, it's not doing that here. And I think it's partly because editorial is committed to the line, partly because of the creative people they've got involved in it, and partly because it's such a fresh look at these characters that people want to know what's next. And when you get to serialized entertainment or uh, episodic entertainment, that's the thing. You have to hook people with what's next. And it feels to me like they are thinking way out ahead on this. Marvel is starting to get back to thinking way out ahead with this Avengers Armageddon, and that's going to lead to this, and that's going to lead to this, and that's going to lead to this. When comics were the most fun was when they had stuff planned out, and us readers were like, oh, cool, now what? So there are times when I like comics and there are times when I'm really excited about comics. They're starting to gear me up to where I'm really excited about comics. I want to know where this is going. I want to know how Ultimate End is going to be, because the first issue, they subverted all my expectations. Everything I thought I was going to see is like, no, this is completely different and I like it. Or with the origin boxes being brought to the regular Marvel universe. Oh, cool. What are they going to do with that? And over at DC, this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this. That's got me excited. And that's how you keep people hooked. We, however, are going to keep people hooked by telling you that next time we're going to be talking about DC's biggest storyline mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, you forgot to remind me of some comics history I learned this week.
Of course I did, because there is so much you learn every day. We'd have to have a separate podcast.
But this is a big one.
So, big one.
A while back, as I was, reading my old 70s Marvel comics, you would see Roy Thomas, writer-editor, Len Wein, writer-editor, Marv Wolfman, writer-editor, Steve Gerber, writer-editor. And what it was, it's after you were editor-in-chief. If you stayed at Marvel, when you stepped down, you would get a contract so you could be a writer-editor. Basically, because Roy Thomas, when he stepped down, he really didn't want anybody taking the spot to be able to tell him what he could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
And Stan trusted him, so Stan gave him that contract. Well, then Len Wein became his editor-in-chief. And he wanted the same deal when he stepped down. And Stan really liked Len. Really liked Len. I recently found out that when Len, toward the end of his run at Marvel, DC, the way DC got it back was, we'll let you write Batman. And, Marvel's got, oh, we could give you this, and we could give you this, and we could give you this. But DC's able to go, hey, want to write Batman? Hey, want to write Superman? And at a point, Len was going to write Batman under an assumed name so he could stay at Marvel as writer-editor. But Jim Shooter shot that down, saying, we don't want one of our editors writing for DC. And Stan was not happy about this, and they tried to work something out. And eventually the time came where Len's contract with DC started. And then Marv Wolfman was editor-in-chief, and he got the same thing. And I always wondered, well, how did Steve Gerber get to be writer-editor when he was never editor-in-chief? And I asked Roy Thomas, and Roy said, I have no idea. By the time that happened, I was moving out to the West Coast. I don't know. Well, I found out what it was. When Gary Conway came in, and that was Marv Wolfman was stepping down, and nobody else wanted the job of editor-in-chief. Nobody wanted it. Roy was about to step into it, but he had just gotten divorced and decided he was going to move out to the West Coast to try and break in writing screenplays and stuff like that. And he said, well, why don't you give it to Gary? You were going to give it to Gary before you gave it to Len Wein. but you decided Gary was too young. Well, he's been over at DC. Give it to Gary Conway. So Stan gave it to Gary Conway. Gary Conway came in and lasted a month. And with him stepping down, he said, well, I need to make sure that my income stays the same. So I want 7 books to write.
Oh, my.
So they gave him Ms. Marvel, The Avengers, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. I don't have the list on me right now, but one of them was The Defenders, which was Steve Gerber's book. And Steve Gerber had a deal that as long as sales didn't go down, he would be the writer on The Defenders. He had a contract for so many pages a month. And Defenders was part of that. And Gary Conway said, no, I want that. And Gerber was about to sue because, hey, in my contract, it says as long as if I'm writing a book and the sales don't go down, I stay on the book. So what Stan instead did says, okay, we'll give you Captain America and we'll make you a writer-editor. So he was a writer-editor during Archie Goodwin's tenure as editor-in-chief. Now, one of the things that Jim Shooter said when he came into the editor-in-chief job was, we cannot have writer-editors. We're going to have an editorial, we're going to have editors. We can't have writer-editors. And the lawyers said, well, these people have it in their contract. And when their contract comes up, you can say that, okay, in your new contract, you won't be that. But in Steve Gerber's contract, it was if he was late, he would be fired. And Steve Gerber was always late. Well, Jim Shooter became an editor-in-chief in January. When the deadlines passed in February, Gerber was late, so he fired him. Right there. 1 month in. He personally didn't like Steve Gerber. They had had arguments in the office. Gerber was a day late with his Howard the Duck script. Shooter fired him that day. So that is how Steve Gerber, A, got to be a writer-editor, and B, why he was removed from Marvel a month after Jim Shooter came in. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half. No, we're at 2 hours.
I know.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
80% of the ocean has never been explored. There could be a Dollar General down there.
And a Dollar Tree right next to it.
Cory, hit my music.
Hey, yo. Can somebody call my mama? It's about to get funky up in here.
We done, bitches!